You are listening to Radiant Creators, a collaborative project composed of people whose passion, purpose, and dedication requires forging their own unique path of empowerment and livelihood. A radiant creator isn't making a living, they are living.
Today we are jazzed to be talking to Yarrow Willard, also known as Herbal Jedi, who's not just an herbalist, he's a jack of all trades, and he is helping people connect to the healing spirit of plants in a very, very unique and powerful way. Welcome to the show, Herbal Jedi. Tell us about yourself, how you became the Herbal Jedi. It appears to run in the family, and your co-creation of the company Harmonic Arts.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on the show. I believe that the true art to kind of living a full life comes from being a bit of a generalist. I mean, yes, we need our focus and direction and trajectory that we're on, but when we spread ourselves across sort of a non-linear, multifaceted disciplines, we gain so much more insight into each one of those. So that holistic model that you're talking about is exactly how I try to live my life, is to get really good at one thing for 5 years, move on, get good at something else, and then pull all of those bits together over the course of a lifetime to create a more well-rounded aspect. So yeah, we started Harmonic Arts about 10 years ago. But before that, I was working with Wild Rose College and working with many different other kind of health food outlets. Took my clinical herbalist program and became a herbalist. And when I first started working with plant medicine, I came to the West Coast because I just love the lushness out here, the big trees, the mushrooms, the wildness of the land. And that really spoke to my heart, which I started to learn your heart is an organ of perception. And this is a way of communicating, a way of feeling into the world that is in that non-linear state. And this was what drew me. But I also realized that as I was kind of feeling in from my heart, as I went into clinic to be a clinician, everyone and their dog had like a level 2 Reiki or was a shiatsu master or some kind of healer in their own way. And they weren't necessarily looking for this young herbalist to fix them. And I wasn't necessarily wanting to fix people either. I realized that there was a much more, I guess, kind of indirect path to healing, which is the one that people want to take. It's to claim healing on their own. We're kind of sick of this model where the doctor is the healer. They're the shaman. They're the person that we go to fix and feed us. My son's back here. I'm in his bedroom just doing this. But we go to this person and give them our power. And that's something that I didn't want to do for myself. And I was recognizing other people didn't want to either. So as we grew Harmonic Arts, we grew it in a way that was like, let's be a bridge for people to find the medicine they want to find, to be the healer they want to be. They have level 2 shiatsu. They obviously are trying to learn how to be an energy worker, or if they're working with the Reiki, or they're working with massage therapy, or they're working with nutrition, whatever that is, they've got some pieces. Now, all they need is a few bridges and a few other outlets to find access to their own healing power. And so that's really been my mission, to deepen connection to the natural world and in every way I possibly can. And so that comes into doing those videos, comes into creating product, it comes into making access points for people to bridge medicine paths in their own lives. And that's what I consider kind of that Herbal Jedi generalist nonlinear path. So I just go where it takes me, kind of at the whim of the muse, so to speak.
I like that. Well, in one of your videos, you said that Mama Gaia is sprouting herbalists. It's like they're needed, and so nature, the intelligence of nature, is actually creating herbalists, and that's quite a. I like the path you're on because, like you mentioned, being a generalist. Well, there's that quote: "Jack of all trades, master of none." But the whole quote is: "Jack of all trades, master of none, often better than a master of one." So we have these, Mother Nature creating herbalists, and they're sort of, I don't know, little like court jesters, mercenaries. I don't know. They're little like elves or something like that.
Yeah,
it's a unique being.
It's creating the herbalist inside of you, like anyone who makes themselves tea on a regular basis is in some form a bit of an herbalist. Like anyone who looks to plant medicine as a way of healing them, there's the difference between, like, when we look at our traditional Western medicine path, it's like a doctor. Okay, that means a certain amount of schooling, a certain amount of this, you work in this hospital, or you specialize in a certain aspect. A herbalist is much more general in the sense that they can specialize if they want. I know plenty of herbalists who are specialized in cancer treatment or specialized in working with geriatrics or with youth. But these are people who have been a herbalist for 10, 15, 20 years and chosen a discipline that way. I'm talking about the herbalist inside of everyone. And I think the planet is calling us to this. I've met so many people who have had a full successful career. They don't need to, they're retired, but then they start taking herbal courses at the college, or they start getting out on herb walks. So they come to we have a Vancouver Island herb gathering that we see all these people are like, I just was interested in plants. I don't know why, but the plants were calling me. And this stems so deep into the darkest and brightest places in ourselves. It's kind of we are part of this earth, and the earth owns us, not the other way around. And we keep hearing that call. Those of us that act on it are being grown into plant medicine people often. And it's a really cool time to be in when there's this kind of resurgence that's happening with looking at the natural world as part of us and part of our healing path.
Yeah, like you mentioned that people will say that they don't know why they're there for the herb gathering. They say that, like, the plants are calling them, it seems like. And I like that because if you look at, as we look back in history, when it comes to trying to figure out, well, how did indigenous people, how did they know? How did they figure these plants out? They all say, well, the plants told us. So it's like the plants have not stopped communicating, and I'd say that's good news for humanity, because I think, like, if the plants in nature stopped calling to some of us to go be, the generalist herbalist, or like the community shaman or something, that would be a bad sign. But that's not happening.
Well, I mean, in some places it is, in the sense, in cities, we are well, it doesn't even have to be a city. If you live in I call it the technosphere, the kind of human created consciousness grid that is our World Wide Web, that is I call it the netherverse. If you live in the netherverse, too much of the time, you don't hear that calling. And it's really easy to misread that when you look at it from the linear mind. Like, it doesn't make sense. It probably doesn't make sense to some of the people watching this or listening to this right now. The plants are calling you. Like, how are they calling you? Are they saying, hey, Bob, I'm over here. Come hang out with me. Well, they're not really saying that. Their vivid colors and their smells and their time of year and the way they show up beside another plant, that will get you curious. And then going to look at them and going to spend time with them will start to build that relationship. And we have to view the way in which other species speak in a more nonlinear, heart-based feeling or sensing or smelling versus just auditory hearing them call, right? So one of the things to hear plants call to you really comes back to deepening our sense of connection to our own sensory perception out in the world. It's very easy when we have a two-dimensional universe to just type, listen, speak, but it's very much counterintuitive when we go out into the natural world to actually, we realize there's a lot more to this. So that's something I'm just really passionate about right now, is this practice of what I'll call forest bathing, or Shinrin-yoku in Japan, this idea of getting out and just exploring our senses, and very literally just taking moments to explore what we're feeling, what we're sensing when we're in a natural environment. You don't have to be a herbalist. You don't have to be anything to do this. It's very simple, but it helps you to start to build confidence in the sensory perception that allows the plants to speak to us in a more clean way, or clear way, I guess.
Oh, I like that, because I think a lot of the ill health that I see out there, people who obviously are, you can break it down to like body, mind, and spirit, like the whole thing's not healthy. And you'll see people walking around, and I really feel that they're disconnected from life, and that's in nature and their own bodies. I mean, the thing is, you're not really disconnected from nature, you're disconnected from your body. And
Yeah, which is nature.
which is nature. Yeah, it's like Otto Leopold, I believe, who wrote St. County Almanac. He said that, when people go into nature and they see nature out there, that's not good. You have to go into nature and realize that you are the land. Like when you stop seeing it, when you are it, that's when you start to get it. And so people are. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people are starting to become more aware, yeah, as concepts of like sacred geometry and this type of thing came into play, as many of the medicine paths from around the world have become more widely accessible. We know about chi, we know about prana, we know about chakra systems, we know about meridian channels, we know about iridology and ear iridology and face diagnosis, and we're starting to learn all kinds of things from various cultural disciplines. The big thing that we're learning from all of these, and that all these cultures talk about, and even talking to plants talk about, is really that the nature of the universe is fractal and self-similar. And so this path of we might see ourselves as separate, but yet we are a part of nature, because nature is a whole that is part of planet Earth. And planet Earth is a whole that is part of our solar system, which is part of our Milky Way, which blah, 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 as it goes on, and in and in and in, and out and out and out. The only way to really be in balance and to heal and to be in good health is to understand the place within the whole that we are part of, and give reverence and honor to that, and do our part in that. If you want to be healthy, you got to do your part, and that's part of the disconnection, is we see ourselves as separate. And this is a simple thing that many of us are waking up to, that as we get overpopulated on this planet, we can't help but realize that we're part of something a lot bigger than ourselves.
And I think that can be challenging to the ego, you might say, at first. But then if you work with it, you realize I'm just bigger than I thought. And that's fine. I mean, I think that people will, now that we're getting to know that a lot of our body mass is fungi. And people think
bacteria
and bacteria, so really who's in charge? And we're realizing that when, like, a big one for me, that's something I had to work on, and I see out there is gut biome health. Now we're realizing that the gut is the brain also. And I just this morning saw an article from Harvard, actually, Harvard Medical School. It's called the Double Edge, they called it, and I'll have to send it over to you. But basically, they have found that it says a new study at Harvard Medical School researchers at Massachusetts. I'm sorry, I screwed that up. Without reading it, because that gets boring to listen to, and it takes too long. But they found that there is actually a I believe fungi. There's like I'd have to look it over again. But they're finding that basically the I don't want to hang up the interview too long looking for it. I'll just skip it. But basically, they're finding that there's a biome in the brain too, where they thought it was sterile, but it's not. So it's connecting even more to the gut biome. We're realizing, some of that the biome in the gut is actually in the brain also, and that's a new finding. And they're finding that when that is out of whack, their hypothesis that they're working on right now is that has to do with Alzheimer's. That actually, gut health not being right, it's going to relate to actual matching microbiome in the brain, which they didn't think was there. Now they believe they found it, and that if that's out of whack, then you have Alzheimer's. That's a possible cause. So. And that's just this morning I saw that article.
Yeah, well, I heard a quote a while ago, and I just loved it, and I've made it into one of my mantras, and it's that 10 years from now, 50% of what you think you know about health will no longer be true. And it's just the rate we're going at right now. Like every 10 years, 50% of what we thought we believed to be true is no longer true, and we keep growing and growing and growing this knowledge, and that's the thing about being flexible to work within the construct of where we're at right now. I mean, I've known for a good 20 years that microbiome and the gut health is the center of our health. This is our 10,000 foot soldiers that are our true immune system that line our gut. These are our warriors that keep us healthy. the white blood cells and all of that is just backup lights and extra exit lights when the power goes out in the center. In that sense, we are a plant with our pot inside. Our soil is in there, and that is really where we need to feed our health. And the studies keep coming out. Obviously, more and more people are aware of this. I really like to debate on this idea of the gluten-free world right now. Like, a lot of us have learned that, maybe glutinous foods are not good for us. Well, my belief is that it's actually not the gluten as much as it's the Roundup Ready wheat. It's the genetically modified and sort of synthetic chemistry that we're now exposed to. And the beauty of this kind of gluten-free revolution that's happened is people are becoming aware of the fact that the gut has a sense of feeling. They're getting more connected to what we call endioceptive sensory perception, which means sensing what is happening inside of my body. This is a huge upgrade for our sensory perception, because many of us have disconnected that. We think we got just scent, we got like smell, taste, touch, hearing, and sight, right?
Blunt instruments.
So we got, yeah. And yet when we understand that we have this ability to sense what's happening inside of ourselves, maybe it's cramping from bad wheat, maybe it's a mixture of allergens, but we sense what's going on. That's a big upgrade, because that's allowing us to understand better how things affect our microbiome. The other one is to look at how we affect the outside, our proprioceptive sensing, which is to sense the world and where we fit into it and how we move into it. These two senses are the ones that I really like to start people off exploring to become more confident in being the healer they are inside. Because inherently, your body knows exactly what to do. It's just, do we know how to listen? And so, yes, there might be a microbiome in the brain, but what matters more than that, even though that's amazing and really cool to learn about, is that we know how to listen to how our body is actually responding to what we're doing, right? If I drink coffee all day and I get this kind of roar and then buzz and then crash, do I listen to that? Do I feel that? Do I change to yerba mate? Do I move on to some other kind of tea that's going to feel better? Do I listen to that? So I don't know. This is the place I like to start us all with in understanding is we are the healer. The power is inside of us. The thing we can do to make that more confident and more clear is to just hone our ability to listen through some mindfulness, through some practice, through just taking time.
And it seems that I think people are taking on their health in that way more and more, because for one thing, health insurance itself is becoming, like here in the U.S., is becoming, with changes that it's had, it's becoming quite ornery. And without getting out in all the details, there are people who are not broke, who are doing well financially, who are doing second mortgages to actually pay health insurance. And that's for real. And so there's more and more people that are just going, well, I'm just going to risk it. So people are starting to kind of have to go their own way. And like, I had a health issue where I had abdominal pains, and it took a while to figure it out. And I figure my nature is just to attack it from every possible angle. Let's just everything, Mm-hmm. And I did that, and I found that, doctors, bless them, they mean well, but I kind of feel like they go, well, I've got a hacksaw and antibiotics. Which one do you want to try first? And I'm like, oh, I'll keep on the path.
It's not too far off from the bloodletting and mercury poisoning it used to be.
Yeah. Oh, at least the bloodletting, I do believe that could. I think that actually worked in some cases because there was some genetic tendencies. You can have an overabundance of iron in the blood, and that actually did work in one specific.
Especially in men, because we don't bleed every month.
Yeah. So that's it. But so in rare occasions, bloodletting, old school might be good, but the mercury, that's never been a good idea.
Well, but anyway, what you're saying and speaking to is how do we deal with chronic states in the body? And our allopathic single directional lens doesn't necessarily lend very well to dealing with these chronic states because they are multifaceted and they come from multiple aspects of the self. And when we understand that we're a physical, mental, spiritual, emotional being, we can also see how those layers add into that state. And so, yeah, like you need to not attack it from all angles, but view it from all perspectives and start to see it from multiple lenses so you can understand it better.
Yeah, and then it became kind of a fun journey. Eventually figured it out, all good. But it was, in great part, it was just the gut biome being unhappy. And so did some of the deep gut biome tests you can do, which do run up a bit of a tab, but I have to say they're really interesting, and you learn a lot about yourself. You go, I had no idea. And you start thinking like, well, why isn't my regular doctor doing this? Because this was such a deep dive into me, into what's going on.
Totally.
Yeah.
There's a lot to see in the stool and to see in the like what's going on. It's kind of like the new edge of medicine these days is really biohacking, and this kind of concept of monitor and read different aspects of the body in order to optimize human physiology. And that's kind of where a lot of stuff is going these days. I've been to a couple of biohacking conferences as a speaker, and really cool to see the biohacking community evolve, and I feel like they're kind of new edge neo herbalists in some ways because they eventually move back to plants. And this is what I know about health to be true is we're like fish. We swim upstream. It doesn't matter if we started from a doctor, from a pharmaceutical, from a stool sample. We swim upstream to become our healthier versions by coming closer to plant medicine, to natural medicine, to the way in which it originates. Where does our health originate from? And that's where whenever we're on a health journey, we're eventually and inevitably swimming upstream to that origin of true health.
That's very true. And I know I definitely have my butter coffee every morning. That's kind of one of my, biohacks right there. And I love it. It was like the last thing I thought I would ever do. And and then I gave it a try very meekly. And now I'm like, I make my big mug of the good stuff. And I mean, that alone was kind of life-changing. So it's amazing how the biohacking community is great, and it is bringing people back to ultimately butter,
Well, like a good quality fat, maybe, in that sense, and burning. I mean, like it's not all about the ketogenics and the keto diet, or that. And I see problems with that too. One thing I'll tell you about, like I've learned about health and health people, many of us become fairly fanatical in some way. And there's always a balanced place where we tip the scale in the other direction. I've seen plenty of ketogenic diet people that I don't think are really healthy because it's super hard on the kidneys and the liver because of the way they're choosing to eat. Just like I've seen plenty of raw food people who went overboard and it was super hard. They started losing minerals and started depleting the body and were super ungrounded. Same with the vegan and vegetarian. There's always an extremivore, and it's important. I saw a Joe Rogan comedy show, and he's like the like best, like the worst group of angry people I know of are the raw food vegans online, and it's just because it's an extreme place. Now there's plenty of really, like my neighbor's a vegan, and he's so gentle and really like mellow, gentle person. But I guess what I'm saying is that these extreme states of health also attract really extreme personalities. And that's part where finding that middle ground, finding that balance place is really important because I just caution anybody who's looking to any one more extreme way of creating health that it's a cleanse. It's a spiritual purge, and go through it and then find balance again with a happy, healthy lifestyle that's fun and enjoyable. That's a big piece of health.
Oh yeah, because I think that it comes down to, are you sort of truth seeking, like as you could say, physical, spiritual, intellectual path, you're swimming upstream, so you're kind of truth seeking, and everything is an aspect of how we're growing. If we're doing our best to pursue wisdom. We're growing. And I
Yep.
guess the issue I see is, and I think it's natural. Humans are very tribal. We like a culture. We like a home. And I think that it's very easy to get stuck in the vegan home, the ketogenic home, or tribe, and then you just start to be
Yeah.
tribal and say this is it. And you have to remember, as for myself, I have to remind myself to say, am I a truth seeker? Am I really, I have this course set for truth and development, both, intellectually, body, mind, spirit, everything. And there's going to be a lot of stops along the way. I did the vegan thing too. And
Yeah.
and nothing wrong with it. I mean, but it was one of my stops. And if I had gotten hung up on this is my tribe, this is my culture, then I never would have. People stop truth seeking; they get stuck.
Yeah.
And the ketogenics always bothers me because I like the idea of Arthur Haynes, his book A New Path.
Hmm.
He speaks about ancestral nutrition. The idea of
Yeah.
let's look at what we ate when we were the healthiest, when we could like pick up a Volkswagen
Totally.
and toss it across the street, and we lived longer than people think we did and such. And historically, and I talked to him, we interviewed him on actually asked him about this. It was like, is there any ancestral evidence, proof of ever being a ketogenic, of anyone ever living on a ketogenic diet? And he's like, absolutely not.
Well, there is a little bit if you look
Is
at
there?
Inuit culture. Look at
Okay.
Inuit culture. Like, but they live in an extreme climate. They eat whale blubber and seal fat. Like that's like the only culture that we've ever seen, and it's not right here. It's not. So a big piece of it, and I'm sure Arthur would speak to this, is that it's the wisdom of where you're living, like the land, the actual ecosphere that's around you, as well as the wisdom of the seasonality within that. So there's a transitional diet that all people ate, and it was feast or famine. It was not just a continually snackivore on the berry bush at 7-Eleven, and like there wasn't this access the way we have it now. But yeah, ketogenic was never a real diet other than in the extreme northern climates where you basically wore furs and ate the blubber. you know
And it seems like that speaks to nature's intelligence. I've always had a belief that where you live is what you should eat. What grows there naturally. Like
Really.
I lived for quite a long time in the Pacific Northwest, and I got to know that beautiful nature, and I still love the green lushness. But now in Scottsdale, in the high desert, in the Sonoran Desert, and at first I thought, oh my gosh, I'm on Mars. This is a wasteland. But then I began to learn about it. And at first, you look at it, you wouldn't think this is the case, but the desert rains food.
Yeah,
It
I
does.
know those little canyons, and they're just full of life. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, everything from if you can find. Well, a great one is mesquite. I mean, every
Yeah,
year you can just grab that, and it's a bit of a pain to make into a flour, but I mean, it's a superfood. It's amazing, and that's another thing about the ketogenic diet that's always kind of puzzled me is, I mean, there's been plenty of Aboriginal people where, like, in our history, where they were getting, I think, up to like 70% of their calories for part of the year on acorns. And then here, like mesquite was a big one. So that's a lot of
yeah.
carbs. That's not ketogenic at all.
No, it's not. And but there's also some protein in there. But yeah, it's definitely more. The thing is I guess it's more phytonutrients, right? Like denser in nutrition, a little lower in calorie content than our current diet, right? But I'd love to just speak to the mesquite tree because it's really cool. Something that I love about a tree like that, or about an environment like you're in, is that there's trees like that. Mesquite is super deep rooted. And so mesquite in itself creates an ecosystem around it. It could be a straight desert. As a mesquite grows, it grows down and it brings water up. And then all this other life starts to come around it and all these other plants that grow around it. And you could eat and nibble on many of the vegetables or the kind of the greenery below the mesquite tree. And as you go out, many different insects come in and then animals come in for shade. And then all of a sudden, this one tree over the course of its lifetime has created this beautiful ecosystem, all of which has supported each other in growth and life, and many of which you can start to harvest and work with and enjoy as part of your own nutrition not just the mesquite, right? So the holistic model of nature is one to create. The mesquite comes in with its deep roots and builds up this abundance of nutrition. As those seeds fall, that fills the topsoil with nutrition, and then many other plants grow up. And all of a sudden, there's this abundance from one kind of magnetic truth pole of a mesquite tree. And I just love that analogy when I look at health in general, is that find that kind of that balance place and then grow and flourish and diversify all the offerings from outside of that.
Oh, I love that. And something I love about living in the desert here is it was my first real experience of Oasis, because you can have desert, then where the river is in the valley, you go Oasis. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, in the Pacific Northwest, well, the Oasis is pretty much everywhere. You live in it. But here, you're on Mars, and then there's the Oasis, and it's beautiful. And I love the way you talk about connecting to and hanging out with plants, because that's a big one for me. Like out here in the desert, some of the coolest plants to hang out with are the saguaros. They're so old and wise, and I'm still figuring them out. I guess they're still figuring me out, because you really can't hang out with them too much. And it's amazing. If one falls over and breaks open, they have the most amazing earthy, sweet smell. I can't even describe it. You know, so it's like, so.
Yeah, building that relationship. No.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. So it's like I'm still figuring out the saguaro. So like we'll sit there and stare at each other. You know, it's just they don't give up their wisdom easily.
No, and that's a good thing, because that keeps you engaged. I really believe it takes time to build a relationship with a plant. And that might mean multiple visits, more curiosity, different seasonality. If you ever want to really hear what the plants are saying, you need to keep visiting them regularly and consistently. And in a sense, just like us, they have this sort of spiritual, this non-physical, we'll call it. It doesn't have to be spiritual or emotional or whatever, mental, any of that. It's just non-physical aspect. And the more time we spend with them, the more we start to feel into and sense their non-physical aspect, where they choose to grow, how they communicate with other plants, with insects, what eats them, what do they like, what are the smells that come off of them, what times of year are they flowering. The more we learn about even these things that we see, the more we get a sense of a personality to these plants. And so, yeah, I love getting what I call fun comfortable with plants, which is just like getting really curious and trying to view them from a non-linear perspective. And I want to bring up this kind of idea of non-linearity, because we try to measure everything in increments of time, in increments of what we've built and grown. And when we look at a business, it's like about what's their net profit, what's their this, all these little increments. Well, that's so far from the truth of anything. We actually are much more non-linear than we are linear. The depth, the feel, the value to anything we really appreciate comes from unmeasurable qualities, and their senses, their smells, they're the way they make our heart feel. They're the way they impact us on this non-physical level. That's what we truly value. And it's really hard in the modern world to get a grasp on our non-linear feelings, because they're not so tangible. They might be deeper, but they're not tangibly evident the same way that linear measurements are. And we've taken nature and we've stripped it away from this nonlinear feeling in order to measure it. And really all we're doing is we're managing and measuring the dead, like what used to be versus what is right now and how it feels right now. And that's just something that I've been really exploring lately, is a lot more of like how my brain has been trained in linear thinking. And I keep going back to that, yet my heart knows that there's so much more depth. Even when I was looking at my year this year, and I was like, wow, look at all the things I did. Well, I could break that down into time segments and achievements and accomplishments. But when I actually look at what they really held for me, they were values. Even the hard things, even the things that seemed like they sucked in the moment, held a deeper non-linear feeling that I now appreciate so much more than the accomplishment or than anything else along that way. What was the quality of the relationship I built? And so I guess I just want to speak to that because I think it's something that's many of us are trying to grab onto for value. It's not like we want money in our lives just to have money. The only reason we want money or we want any kind of caliber or credential or state is because of the feeling it gives us, because of the possibilities it opens to us. So the real thing we're looking for is openness to possibilities and a feeling of abundance in ourselves. And that can be found by looking at cactus, that can be found by hanging out with a plant. Very simply, even just by going to grandma's house without the, oh yeah, she's grandma, she's old, I got to spend time with her, kind of with the, wow, here's a wise person who can share something with me that I don't know about myself. So I can learn and feel deeper into myself. That's a nonlinear approach to a wider general aspect of health within ourselves and the world we live in.
Well, linear time is getting a little bit dated. I mean, so we are living in a multidimensional realities, across we're stepping across, timelines, which gives the appearance of time and movement. So and definitely nature helps one realize that. But yeah, I think as one gets a little wiser as they go along, they begin to realize that if you think of things strictly linearly, and you think about things as far as just accomplishments, goals, accomplish, kind of like your Microsoft project schedule you have, that's all nice and there's reasons for such things. But you realize that many of the things that you've been working on right now, you've been working on your whole life, but you didn't know it, and now the dots start to connect. I mean, how often have we, been given like this, a gift of a mushroom knife.
Foraging knife.
Yeah, foraging knife, and now I'm foraging mushrooms. It's like you start to realize everything is really happening at once. You could say, and you're basically just connecting the dots, and it appears that my focus is right here in this moment, and here I am, but yet. What part of this is happening in the future that I'm not paying attention to yet? So I can get pretty out there on that one. But yeah, it's a great state for your mind to be in. When you realize that it's not just happening right now. It's happening across many versions of me and such.
Oh, totally. I love that. And yeah, I love that more of us are seeing that about ourselves and. Growing into that, it makes it a really beautiful awakening and understanding when we grow into a new possibility within ourselves, and we realize that this is something we've been nurturing our whole life up until there. So you talking to a plant is something that's probably even as a kid, like we don't have these barriers as a child and as children anyway. So we do play in that world, and it brings back those memories. It brings back those feelings.
It connects you to your whole being. It's like I was super fortunate to grow up, grew up on the East Coast and grew up right like next to the house. There was the old growth forest that went on forever, and so I was super fortunate to be able to, as a youngster, just walk into the forest and spend time there. And now, we're talking to Herbal Jedi, and somehow I go, you know what? That's all connected. Like both are meant to happen. Both mutually create one another. So it kind of gets this way broader perspective of what you are and how you're connected,
Yep.
Well, something that I do notice with people in health is that, like earlier mentioning people connecting to nature, while also connecting to themselves, their own bodies. But you did an Instagram, I think this morning, where you were talking about you were nature bathing, you were in the forest, and how you can feel with your heart when you're out. And I think that, at least for me, when I go out in nature, it's wonderful because your heart it's like, I almost want to call it a radar, but you energetically feel, for me, at least 15 feet diameter circle. Mm-hmm. And I know you can feel further, but you begin to open your heart, open your ability to perceive. And I think a lot of people aren't aware they can do that. And even our eyes, like right now we have eyes that look at something a foot away, 3 feet, 10 feet in a room. We don't, many people are going through their lives right now, a lot of it, and they're not using their eyes at a distance. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
they don't actually look at a horizon or a forest. There's no distance. Like, we're actually, unfortunately, I think a lot of reasons why we wear glasses, I just believe, is that we don't, our field of vision where we actually focus is so slight. And so somehow I would round that out into a question about the importance of finding a place in nature and actually experiencing it through the seasons and expanding your heart and expanding your eyes and expanding your awareness. I mean, that seems to be a practice that people can, that the people need.
It's one that brings us back to source code, in a sense, that gets the muse flowing inside of us, that gets the connection back. You know, that's, if we look at that aspect, yeah, it is something we need, but realistically, there's so many paths to get to that place. One of those is coming back to nature, because it's an easy place to really see that evidence around us, to see the abundance, to appreciate that. And I would give one practice that I've often given to people to increase and enhance this. It's called a sit spot. And, you know, another herbalist shared this idea with me, and I tried it out and I just loved it. And it's really because many of us still live in cities, or we live in like our general population is in urban clusters. There's not always like that 100-acre woods just down the road that we can go and hang out in. But there's always a tree. There's always a place, even if it's a dog park and there's one tree on the side, you know, what like, and it's just a bare grass. Well, there's always something that is nature. So my invite is for people to create a sit spot, which is a place that they go for 5 to 20 minutes, either daily or 3 to 4 times a week at first, rounding that off to maybe once or twice a week after a while. But at first they build a repetition and they go and sit at that same spot, and they allow their mind to just wander. There's no like, the problem with many meditations and many of these things is it's all disciplined, like do it this way, this way, this way, this way. Allowing themselves to just get curious, maybe look around, try to just feel into what you're feeling, process your stuff, allow your monkey mind to like jump around to all the tasks and whatever you got to do, but then eventually just try to get to a clear, clean slate so you can start to receive in some level, right? Do that piece. And what I've found is that if people find a sit spot and they do it for a full year, their sense of understanding where they fit into the natural world, where they show up, how things communicate back and forth, listening and learning from plants directly and from their own spirit and from the muse and from source code, as I would call it, becomes amplified to a place where they cannot ignore it and where they feel much closer connected to the truth of how they're sitting right now, right here, as things come in, as they move out of them. So the basic invite is find a spot, preferably a big tree, you know, just something that holds years of wisdom, right? That's been accumulating years of wisdom, and sit there for 5 to 20 minutes, starting on a daily practice, but moving into a weekly practice, and do it all through the seasons, every single season, at least a few times. And if not, if you can do it every week, that's going to be much more fast tracking your capacity to feel from your heart place and to sense from these other extrasensory perceptions that we have. So that's my number one invite for people to do. And I got one more that I'll share that I think is really good for the vision, because I call this eagle eyes, when we're piercing our vision into what we want to see, right? It's like, whether it's 3 feet, whether it's 10 feet, whether it's over there, many of us live in this, like, that's what I want, that's what I'm getting, that's where I'm going. Oh, I want a new iPhone, I'm going for that. I don't care how I get there. But the challenge with this is that it keeps us, neurons that fire together, wire together. So we keep looking with our vision, piercing vision. Softening our vision is the most important step we can do to release ourselves from that constant state of like attention ahead of myself. So we soften our vision by doing what we call wide angle lenses, which means I imagine there's a magnetic pole at the back of my head and my eyes are bending around Another one I'll do is I'll take my fingers and I'll flicker them until they're as far away from my head as I can see, so I can just barely see on both sides. I want my vision to soften and look sideways versus piercing and looking forward. And I'll walk very slowly. As I soften my vision, the intention is to notice, do I smell better? Do I hear better? Do I feel the wind on my face better? And often the case is our other senses really heighten when we soften that when we go into wide angle vision. So that's another practice that's really simple. It's easy for people to do in a city, anywhere. Both of these, a sit spot and wide angle vision, are very simple ways we can start to hone our capacity to receive from the universe and to notice the relationships that are happening around us in their many forms that are more subtle than just, hey, how are you today? Oh, I'm good. That kind of relationship. So anyway.
Oh, I love that, because the wide angle vision, to me, that's really, I love that one, because I always suggest to people, walk somewhere where you're not going to walk off a cliff or trip on something, because it's a new way of looking. You're not used to it. And you have to just kind of relax and let it happen. Be aware of that peripheral vision, because we don't really use it as much as we used to. And so when you're out walking, you do have to almost walk slower and relax and just let it be aware of that greater your peripheral vision. It can actually be a little exhausting. I find that I can do it for a while, then I need to get my eagle vision back. I can't. It's like I just can't do it all the time. But it's definitely an amazing practice.
And you don't want to do it all the time, right?
Yeah, because I imagine our ancestors, when they were in nature, they were. I mean, it was important to your life to be aware of what's over there.
Your survival. Right?
Yeah. Like, I had a great experience in the Pacific Northwest. I was hiking, and it's not just this time, but definitely became quite the Bigfoot believer, because I was walking on a trail, and there was no kidding, like a black thing, pillar, hairy, way out there. And I kind of didn't want to look. So I was looking at my peripheral vision, and I even stopped a time or two and looked. I actually took pictures. I have them. She kept getting closer so quickly I saw it like 150 yards, then like 100 yards, then like 75, then like 50, and it was moving instantly without making noise. And I'm just thinking, there's how could you ever do that? But I was checking out my peripheral vision, and then it just kind of was gone. And that's my little peripheral vision story.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's really, but you saw it from your kind of untangible, a non-linear sensing, right? You almost sensed that type of thing.
Yeah, I sensed it, and I could look and see it. It was there, but and it was a strange situation. So, one thing about the Harmonic Arts, the amazing company that you're a co-creator of, as you put it, that I really like, is that you, I think, help get across to people with the videos that you're making, and then also with the videos you make really for every product, it seems, or at least some of them I have noticed, that you're getting across the knowledge that sure, you can take an herbal concoction, but it's going to work a lot better if you actually hang out with those plants. If you if you understand them, it's kind of like wine. Wine is okay, but if you go to a winery and you learn about the grapes and you see where they were growing, and then you do a wine tasting, you're like, it's an explosion. You totally get it. And so it seems that it's not just taking our herbal concoctions, but it's connecting to really connecting to those plants on a deeper level.
Yeah, we are. It can be hard when we don't live right next to those plants. Like, oh, reishi mushroom. Well, it grows in China or in these hoop houses in Washington or wherever it is, but I don't have the ability to go and connect with it. But I can start to learn about its history and connect with how it's been used, and then the medicine in it, what kind of branch polysaccharides are in it, how those show up, why those are important, and then what that starts to build a story around it for us, the way that we can gain appreciation. There's a concept of appreciation that I've learned that I feel like is so important with everything. It's the more we appreciate things, the more they appreciate, in value in that sense. So our appreciation for the story behind our medicine, for the connection to the plant, for the way that is much deeper than just point A gets to point B, which creates solution C. It's like, I have irritable bowel, I take reishi, it calms down my irritable bowel, done. Like that little math equation is entirely fiction. And yes, people have helped ground in and calm down their irritable bowel with this reishi by grounding their mind and their body. But the real story is a much wider, there's so much more vocabulary, so much more feeling, and so much more story that comes along with how that works. How does it teach my immune system to understand these pathogens and to heal some of the leaky gut and to work with the microbiome in order to create the type of soil that encourages healthier gut bacteria? How does it ground my mind, bring me back into present state so I'm aware of my foods that I'm eating that are causing this irritable bowel? How does it calm down my autoimmune cascades, my allergen responses? These are all things that this one little mushroom has so much to share with us based on its chemistry. But when we start to go even further than that, we learn that everything we put in our body is knowledge. Every time we eat something, it's like reading a book. We are giving the body knowledge of how the world around us shows up so that it can show up in its best form. And if we just feed it crap, we're giving it like bad romance novels all the time. It's not like getting any real good information to build a healthy ecosystem. So I really like to think of herbs, plants, all these kinds of medicines we might work with as books, as building blocks of knowledge to teach our body how to be the healer that heals itself, right? It knows. We know. We don't need to know in here as much as this whole being knows how to show up in the most powerful, healthy state. We just need to feed it the knowledge to help it encourage that. And so many of these mushrooms, these medicinal mushrooms, many of these tonic adaptogenic herbs, they're my favorite to work with because they're super safe and they're really gentle, but they slowly kind of encourage the body to show up in a healthier state based on being already fairly healthy, right? So I really like these kind of herbs, and they have a lot of good information to share with us. So that's what one of my big beliefs with plant medicine is, that they don't heal us. The plants don't heal us. They teach us how to heal ourselves by imparting wisdom that they've gained through their life experience.
You're a great storyteller, and I think that really helps to. I think the when you do your little videos on the different products you guys have, like the Divine Feminine and the Divine Masculine, I was looking at those, and I think you have a video for each one, and you're a great storyteller, and storytelling is ancient for us humans, and so when you do your storytelling with the product, and you're going through each herb or mushroom in it, that actually, it's literally like being in the forest, and you gain an appreciation and you experience it. And I really believe that hanging out with the plant, that getting to know it, is essential to the healing. It is. You sure, you can just, okay, I'll take my Divine Masculine and I'll mix it up and drink it. But if I actually watch a video and I get to know all these things in it, and I open it and I go, hello there, and you begin to hang out with your tea, that's the magic that is being missed today by a lot of people.
It is. It's and yet, like, the evidence we keep like we're on the edge of it. We kind of understand it. We kind of see it. Like, even in the allopathic world, where they're like, wow, look at placebo. Placebo does so much. Why is placebo so powerful? It's because people believe that they're getting healed and healing. And part of it comes down to this, the not just the story, and it's not just like coyote medicine of the trickster. It's actually being part of the healing process. When somebody takes the blue pill and they think they're being healed, the the thing is they've engaged actively in part of the healing journey. And so a big piece for us is to be active participants in our healing journey. And so learning the story of the plants is part of our active participation, getting to understand why they've been used this way, how they might be used this way, where they show up in the natural world. These are all huge pieces that build more of that appreciation that helps them appreciate in that sense. So I again, we can take like Hishu Wu Fo Tea. It's a anti-aging herb that helps increase and support the kidney yin and is a tonic for our adrenals. Amazing herb for helping with graying hair if that's what somebody wants, or balding if that's what somebody wants. But the story is it can go beyond that. And yet when we start to look at it, where does it show up? How is it used in these Chinese medicine? How is it showing up that way? It has so much more value to us than just, oh, Hishu Wu tonic herb, take it. So I don't know. I'm a big believer in that aspect of storytelling, and not just for the sake of story, but because it rounds out the values that we have for things. And it's so much more important in the modern world to maintain story, because story, here's a good example, truth, right? Everyone has their own truth, but truth's really naked. Truth is very abrasive. Truth comes across and says all the wrong things at all the wrong times because it's truth. And it's like, this is truth. When truth is wrapped in story's clothing, truth becomes softer. Truth becomes easier to work with. Truth becomes better to hear from. And we understand it at a deeper level. And it resonates more with us. So this idea of wrapping truth with story's clothing is the best way for us to understand how things work and show up in the world. And it really resonates with us at a much deeper level.
That is perfect. It's absolutely true. Yeah, it's definitely the work that you are doing. I love that. And so I don't want to keep you much more than an hour. I know you probably got a new sprout to take care of. I hear. Congratulations.
It's pretty awesome to be back in that sort of bosom of love's place with a baby in my arms. This is my fourth child, and every time it's like, wow, so magical, so amazing. It brings so much love and appreciation and just gratitude for life to my being, that I can't help but be a radiant creator, as this is, within that. So
yeah. Oh, well, there's one video you did, and I'm going to link to a bunch of your videos, in the show notes so people can check them out. You're easy to find on YouTube. But there was one where you were looking at just to give people an idea what some of these videos are like, and the way that Yarrow sees nature, experiences it. There's one called The Balm of Gilead. And in that, you said, I'm probably not quoting you exactly perfectly, but this is what you're in for when you watch Yarrow's videos. Yarrow said, I'm roughly quoting, the cottonwood is one of the sacred trees to Native American folklore. It is known as a spiritual conduit for great spirit consciousness. Through the rustling of its leaves, you can hear the words of the spirit world sounding. You may just hear a deeper meaning in this plant with your third ear listening and heart eye open. That is amazing. And that's what you're getting into when you look at Harmonic Arts, the products they have, when you watch Yarrow's amazing videos. And so as we, sadly begin to come to a close, I would ask Yarrow, what are some of the products you guys are working with right now that you're excited about? And, what helps people with the seasonal transition right now? Because everybody is sick. I'm a little sick. That's why I'm drinking so much while we're talking. And, of course, where can people get a hold of you?
Awesome. Okay, yeah. So harmonicarts.ca right off the bat is where they can get a hold of us. We have an online website that ships all over North America, no problem that way. And really what I've started to kind of look at is that obviously the medicinal mushrooms are some of the most potent pieces of that advanced chemical knowledge system that is on the planet. I love working with them. We sprinkle the use of medicinal mushrooms. They're what are called immune modulators. So they'll modulate our immune response. If we're too high autoimmune, they'll bring it down. If we're too low, they'll bring it up. We sprinkle those into many of our products and work with them on many different levels. But my favorite thing these days has, well, actually for the last couple of years, has really been creating I use the Vitamix or your blender, whatever it is. I call it the modern day witch's cauldron, right? That's where we make the magic happen in our blenders these days. And so rather than doing a cold smoothie, especially in the winter, I think of hot tonic drinks. This is the path ahead. You talked about your bulletproof coffee, your butterproof coffee. I'm a big fan of fattening up any kind of thing. You know, originally butterproof comes from yak butter in tea, right? So take a tea base, hopefully either an immune tea, a throat harmony tea, a relaxing tea, whatever it is that you're working with. Build a tea, strain it out, throw it in your blender, add in some fat, and then blend that up. What we do is we make all these superfood and medicinal mushroom and super herb elixir powders that we then add into that tea and that fat and maybe a little bit of honey or a little bit of whatever it is to kind of bring a bit of sweetness to it. And we craft up these hot tonic drinks. That's what I've been doing. In the mornings, I do one called Activate. I love the Activate because it's got that mesquite in it. It's got lucuma, maca, shilajit, which is a mineral pitch, reishi, chaga, cinnamon, and of course, cacao. So it's a nice, like, modified, powerful superfood hot chocolate. I'll mix that with that sacred masculine that you talked about. So we'll take a scoop of our Activate powder, a little scoop of our sacred masculine, which is more tonic herbs, reishi, cordyceps, shilajit again, hishiwu, eleuthero, which is Siberian ginseng, astragalus, licorice, and cayenne. I don't have enough time to go through all of the herbs in there, but essentially tonic herbs that are going to support my adrenals, support my cardiovascular system, increase my energy, and support my immune system, mixed in with this Activate elixir base. This is a great way to start my day. Upgrade, 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 upgrade. I've given myself 20 different plants and the knowledge that they hold in them as a supportive aspect to my health, right? Mix it with fat. Fat slows the absorption down. Add a little bit of sweet. Sweet expands the taste buds and the digestive system to carry the calories into us. I really believe in taxi drivers, which is all these things like sweet, alcohol, fat, these even salt. These are taxi drivers that drive things into our system. Caffeine is another taxi driver. So in my coffee, like you're doing, I'll add those medicinal mushrooms in because they'll drive them deeper into the system. So this has been my jam is how do I turn my blender into this hot tonic elixir cauldron, adding the information from 20 different plants plus to a fat and a sweet that's going to slow the absorption down, increase the bioavailability, so I get the most out of these herbs. That's my drink. And I do an evening one, I do a morning one. Our evening one's more elevate, and it's like lion's mane, transmission herbs with pollens, and a whole lot more like that, mixed in with our divine feminine, which is more of that tightening, tonic type herbs like schizandra, more calming yin energy herbs like ashwagandha. So anyway, that's kind of what you're in for when you look at what Harmonic Arts offers, is a wider spectrum of kind of elixir culture. And where our real secret sauce is that we're all formulated by herbalists who know how to build tribes, build community out of plants. Plants, just like us, they want to be in community, right? The reason many of us live in a city or in a town and not just far off in a log cabin in the woods is because we need community. And so when we build herbal communities, they work better. Now, the beauty of working from plant medicine that comes from a herbalist who's trained in formulating this way is that we're building a community not just with like the 10 top warrior herbs for the liver, for example. We're building a community of herbs that are going to support the liver, but then that's going to support the blood flow into the liver and the hormones that are coming for the liver to process and help detoxify and move them out of the body, right? So we're building a tribe that effectively moves toxins out through using the liver channel or for the immune system. So all of our products are built with that kind of secret sauce that is formulated by herbalists. And we create tinctures, teas, these elixir powders, hot tonic beverages. And right now we're just about to release a new botanical chocolate bar in February. So in a little bit, but it's exciting. Another medium. The goal of Harmonic Arts is to be a bridge for people to access plant medicine from. And so that's really what we do. And because of that, it's really grown to a place where now I have the opportunity to do these videos and to create in whatever form my heart is inspired to create in, that is going to be along that mission, along that path of deepening our connection to the natural world. So you can find me at Herbal Jedi on Instagram. Obviously, all the social networks are access points. But yeah, YouTube is probably my favorite place. So come find the Herbal Jedi.
Well, thanks so much for being on the show today. It was amazing.
Appreciating you. Thanks for doing what you do.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Radiant Creators. Check out more content at radiantcreators.com. If you like the show, give it a like. Share this. Comment. Keep the conversation going. You can also find us at alternatecurrentradio.com, where there's this show and a lot more.